welcome to the pilot project of Leah Moses Entrepreneur Podcast, and this is the beginning. My name is Leah Moses, and I will be, sharing a lot of business, entrepreneurial, content, marketing content, and things of the like to encourage fellow Caribbean millennials to, become entrepreneurs, start businesses, get involved in online business and digital business as we seek to move forward as the new generation getting ready to take over, the new world, right? And so I believe that I have a lot of things to share, a lot of things that we here in the Caribbean may not be familiar with. And so I just want to bring it to the forefront. I do have all my social media handles are at Leah CL Moses. So I have a Facebook page, I have my Instagram account, and of course I have some videos up on YouTube. So I'm going through my journey. So you're really going on a journey with me, to get this information out there, and I will be, more than happy and will be planning to feature, fellow entrepreneurs and probably evolve the program whereby we can have some healthy discussions with like-minded people, or even people who would like to make the transition into this business world, into the self-employment world. And so this is basically your pilot project. And so let me just give you a little background information on who I am as we take off. So I grew up in Morvant, Trinidad and Tobago, right? And I went to school in Laventille. I left school with my, 7 CXCs. I then went to Roy Tech and completed my bachelor's degree in business administration. At that time, I was mostly interested in becoming probably a manager. I remember thinking about becoming a manager somewhere, right? And so they were even selling that idea that with that qualification, we will be able to seek out middle management jobs. Of course, that wasn't the case in reality, right? By the time we graduated, I was working at the University of the West Indies, and it basically bumped up my salary 2 increments, which, to be honest, wasn't much, right? Less than $400 increase on my salary. And so the only way that I would have been able to go up would have been to either apply independently for an open post if it should become available, or to literally find a new job whereby I will start fresh with the qualification. However, I always had the entrepreneurial bone in my body. Ever since I was a teen, in secondary school, I would have my grandmother make cake, even red mango, and I will go in school gladly and sell it. And even at school, there was a Pelori sales lady out at the front gate. She would sell Pelori at snack time, and then she would sell roti at lunchtime. And so a lot of the times, in this modern time and people of the millennial age, a lot of us, we like things quick and fast, and we don't always want to do the hard work for stuff. So, somebody with the entrepreneurial mind as myself decided that, hey, I can go to the gate to get Pelori for everybody. However, there will be a charge of $1. In some cases was $1 and 1 Pelori ball, so that if you really add it up, I have a whole free bag of Pelori for myself, but all I had to do was just go down to the gate and get it for everybody else. Or I might have landed an extra $5 for myself because 5 classmates wanted to have Pelori that day. And so those were the beginning days of my entrepreneurial journey. I even, set up a red mango stall outside my gate, right where I live, and so people who would pass up and down the street would have stopped and bought, right? I believe I got this entrepreneurial bone from my grandmother, who would have sold tanks of gas from Ramco Limited. We sold gas here in the yard, and so she would show us the business. She also ran a susu for over 30 years, in which my mother then continued it, and it only stopped last year, right? So that was the beginning days of my entrepreneurship. Even while I worked, at UE, I began to study and get involved in the nuts selling business, because there's a place by the name of Agard's Nuts. For those of you all from Trinidad and Tobago, Agard's Nuts on the Eastern Main Road, Barrett area, they sell nuts wholesale. So I would just take my money and get me a 10-pound bag of nuts, come home, get the small brown bags and everything, come home, parcel out the required amount into each brown bag, fold it down just as the nuts guys do, and I will then package that in a lunch bag and then take off with it to work. And in less than, when you start something, or when somebody, your co-workers or whoever, gets a smell or a whiff of what you're eating, sometimes it encourages them to feel for that particular thing. And so it was just a matter of having people just get that smell of nuts to then realize, oh yeah, I have the nuts. And so it was easy to just get the money for my nuts sometimes before the day has even begun, the work day, the nuts are sold out, and I am in profit. So I always had this entrepreneurial bone. And then, coming down to my last few months in UE, where I resigned in 2013, I decided to, I was feeling really compelled to gain back my time freedom, right? I wanted to own my time, and I believe that, being an employee wasn't really helping me to own my time. Of course, we'll get into other topics of this in future episodes, but I couldn't really own my time because I'm now subject to the company's working time. I'm subject to the usual company set out lunch hour, or even if it's staggered, it's still 1 hour. I cannot decide one day to take a 3-hour lunch, or after lunch to immediately go home. So, I realized that, hey, it's not really working for me, in terms of my time management. I cannot have my time to myself as an employee. I also recognize that, based on the idea that I had of, the transportation business, I realized that I can easily replace and surpass the current salary I was at, right, as a clerical assistant grade 2, to be specific, at that employer. So I decided one day I took the paper and I said, if I do X amount of, I even started basic. This is nothing, as we like to put it, it's nothing bougie. I simply calculated that I can have private jobs done in addition to having an official taxi whereby I can work on a taxi stand, right? And I started to evaluate the stands that I would like to work on. And so Rising Road came up as an idea. And so I got the information as to, what would have been the fare to drive up and down Rising Road, take passengers in a 4-seater car. And so I put some pen to paper, and I recognized easily that I can more than make my day pay and more by doing that, right? Because at the end of the day, transportation is a needs-based business. All right, not everybody has licenses, and sometimes even the ones that have licenses, there comes a time sometimes when they too need to travel, when their vehicle is down or probably at the shop or something, right? Or sometimes some people just don't even feel to drive, because if you're familiar with Port of Spain, you don't want to get your vehicle wrecked, right? And so sometimes you don't even want to go park and pay, exorbitant $10 an hour fees to park up in a car park, right? So you might decide you can just travel, probably pay $5-6 and just travel into the city. And so I calculated all of this and decided that here's what, so I can move to a different level financially, right? Increase my money. I can have time freedom in that I can decide when I want to go. If I don't feel to go, if something comes up and I really need to attend to it, I can definitely do so without having to sign a slip of paper and submit it to a supervisor or an administrative assistant. And so when I did this calculation, I recognized that, I think I am ready for the leap, that leap of faith, that leap of going out on my own. I did not do like what most people will do and what most people may suggest you do, which is work for a while and save up a bunch of cash, so that you can cover 2-3 months of expenses and so on. I really just took that calculated risk. I knew to myself that here's what, all things being equal, I will go out there and from my very first day I'll be in profit, because the vehicle I had was already paid off for fully, and so all I had to do was spend a little portion of money, which was under $500 at the licensing department, to change my car. At the time it was a Honda Civic, not a common car that people usually would work taxi with or do transportation services with, except it's of course on the higher end or rentals. But I took that car and I decided I'm going to take it from a liability into an asset. And so I went to the licensing office after I took my final vacation. I took a month's vacation, and then the resignation took effect the very day after. So that would have been the 1st of November 2013, would have been my day on my letter that I resigned and walked away from the world of employment. I haven't been employed since then. Of course, I've done, businesses and other things that would consider me as an independent contractor, not so much an employee. And by these things, I am speaking about pioneering Uber when Uber came into Trinidad and Tobago. And so I learned that system. I was looking into it with my cousin who lives in Virginia, United States, and so I was just waiting and hoping the opportunity could come here. And lo and behold, one day he told me, he said, I have good news for you. Uber is deciding to come to Trinidad and Tobago. And so I signed up. It just so happened that my first trip that day was a local news reporter from Newsday, and she wrote an article. I still have the picture to this day, smiling from ear to ear, as we say. And she wrote an article titled "Uber drives into TNT," and so there is my picture, a good sized picture with me grinning, with my name, Uber driver Leah. And so I was able to also merge. Well, that came a while after doing the transport and having clients call me for private jobs and so on. And I started rideshare, and then following rideshare, I started doing food deliveries, and so I was just expanding in the transport industry. I am still currently involved in that industry. Of course, I've done some other stuff in between, like online sales and marketing. I've done affiliate marketing. I am involved in, and I've done network marketing as well, leveraging these systems of online business as well as traditional business, which is transport, to, as we call it, build wealth, or to have the multiple income streams. And so I believe that when I speak from a position of experience. I believe I have stuff to bring to the table. I can explain to somebody, how do you get involved if you're interested in transport. It doesn't even have to be passenger transport. It could be a van, right? How do you get involved there? I can explain to you if you want to do online sales, you want to do affiliate marketing, because these are the things I have dipped my toes in. All right. Just over the past 2 years, myself and my best friend, we opened a car wash. So we have several months of experience of running a car wash, 2 females washing cars, and how we acquired the biggest client, and the first client really was the local ride sharing company drivers, as well as a mechanic who just was living on the street, and he used to service high-end vehicles. And so we were able to give the service. After he would have fixed a vehicle, we were washing these vehicles to have it delivered to the clients, right? And so I did that, and then I sold fry pies, right, as a vendor. So I have some information there as well. I've run the mats, I've done the business. Also, myself and my same best friend, we also started a snow cone sales business, which was called the Twin Isle Chillers, right? And so I even have experience, whereby I would have mapped that business on Google Maps. The car wash was mapped on Google Maps for more reach and so on. So I think I would have dabbled, as some people would call me, a serial entrepreneur, but my main core business has been transport ever since. I think most people, if you don't know me for online business, you know me definitely for transportation business, all right, because it's been 6+ years officially as a registered taxi driver, and so I have the experience in the most practical businesses, and I am going to be preaching practical entrepreneurship, not, something that can go away. I'm not teaching about fads. I mean, of course, if you want to capitalize on a seasonal business, there are options for that. But I am really going to be, focusing on the practical side to entrepreneurship, needs-based businesses that we can be getting involved in, things that won't go away, things that can withstand pandemics, recessions, things that people will always need, right? There are certain businesses, as long as life exists, those businesses are going to be required. And so this is the direction in which I want to help people travel in and trod in. And so that was a basic background. Of course, anything I would have left out, of course, it will come up in examples in future episodes. So that's basically a synopsis. I will say it was very brief, a brief synopsis of me in the business world. Of course, I've built several online business organizations and teams, and so I have experience in terms of building teams and working with people and presenting business opportunities. To this day, I am involved in one, and I weekly present on behalf of the company and leadership, and achieve results from doing so. So, it will be coming from a place of my personal experience, and then so over the years as well, I would have met a lot of interesting, amazing people, fellow entrepreneurs, people who are still employees, but probably thinking about doing something, probably wondering how to do something. And so that combined with my own personal experience, I believe will be able to bring something different to the Caribbean space, the Caribbean millennial, the Trinidad and Tobago entrepreneur or aspiring entrepreneur. And so that is basically what this will be about. The things that we don't really teach in school is what I want to bring to the forefront. I want to bring that practical entrepreneurship to the market. So that's basically that. I look forward to the future episodes. Of course, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Leah CL Moses, and so that I will be gladly taking suggestions as to what do you want to learn, what do you want to hear me speak about, be it registration of businesses, be it a sole trader business versus a limited liability business, some of the common problems entrepreneurs face within the first year, within the first 6 months. These are the kind of things I want to guide the millennial mind with, so that they are able to withstand if they are new into business, or if they had gone through something, they can get some encouragement to know that they weren't alone in the journey, and that somebody else went through the same thing as well, right? And then to possibly, we can evolve whereby we attract the right set of listeners, and so we may be able to even assist some upcoming entrepreneurs really achieve their goals, because we know one of the major problems of the Caribbean people, or especially Trinidad and Tobago citizens, is we have a lot of issues sometimes accessing capital to do the things that we really want to do, or to launch in the way that we want to. But of course, there are ways around all of this, and everything is possible. You just have to have the right game plan. You just have to have the right mentor, the right person who's willing to coach. And so I don't mind giving out this information free of charge, just so that I can help somebody. And so if I have helped somebody achieve something, then I know that my purpose here was not in vain. Thank you for listening. My name is Leah Moses, and I'll see you in the next episode.